What is going on, guys and gals? Brooklyn bound the raid scientist here, and today we're going to break down all the details, collectibles, and hidden chests in the new dungeon from Season of the Seraph, Spire of the Watcher. Let's jump right into it. Load into the dungeon from the director in Savathun's throne world. Note, you are going to have to talk to Ikora first if this is your first time trying to do the dungeon. When you load in, you'll be on Mars and follow the path leading up to the opening encounter. Here is where you're going to learn the main mechanic of this entire dungeon that will be present in all of the encounters. This dungeon is based on completing circuits of long wires across power nodes. First things first. To interact and power any of these wires or nodes, you're going to need a buff called Arctrician. Without it, you will not be able to activate any of the power lines. To obtain this buff, you'll need to step in the white Vex pool that is dropped by killing any of the Minotaurs that spawn consistently throughout the dungeon. Step in the pool, and you'll be given the Arctrician buff for about 30 seconds. Then, you'll need to find the starting node to start powering up the wires. The starting node always has these blinking arrows on it as shown. Shoot this power node to start up the circuit, and then follow the yellow wire to the next node. Shoot the next node, and then you'll notice that the power cable will turn blue, signifying you did it correctly, and power is now surging through it. Then, keep following that wire around, shooting all the nodes in the sequence until you reach the end. The final nodes in this encounter are all lying on the ground in the middle of the buildings. The wires can crisscross and try to trick you, but the nodes never change, so once you've done this a few times, you'll likely have a good idea of where they all are. It's important to note that anytime you successfully shoot a node and power more of the line, you'll get more time added to your Arctrician buff. So you can keep chaining the wires pretty quickly as long as you don't die and don't take too long finding the next one. You need to shoot these nodes in order, otherwise it won't work. If you lose the buff, don't worry, the lines you activated will still stay on, and you'll just need to find a new Minotaur to get a new buff to finish the chain. Keep up with the ads while you're doing this. There are Cyclops way high up on the cliffs shooting down on you, as well as Supplicants, Harpies, and Vex goblins trying to prevent you from finishing. Note, in this opening encounter, each of the 4 buildings essentially has one starting node each. I'll show you on screen where they all are now. Once you've completed all 4 circuits ending in the middle, the trapdoor will open and allow you to enter. Next, you'll traverse a jumping puzzle to the next main encounter. This is pretty linear. Having a sword and increased mobility may help here if you aren't the best jumper. Note that there are a handful of collectibles, 6 total to find, that you can collect. If you get all 6, you'll complete one of the triumphs for the seal and increase your chance at the exotic bow drop at the end. The first collectible is up on this ledge after you've jumped all the way down in the main bunker after the opening encounter. After collecting it, jump up on these catwalks and navigate through the tunnels until you reach this room. Drop down below and grab collectible number 2. Then head left and you'll jump up to this big open area. I recommend taking out the Hydra and some enemies with a scout or a sniper rifle before jumping just to make your life easier. Once you're across these hanging platforms, jump over to the far ledge on the left for another collectible, number 3, and the first secret chest as shown. Note, This chest is not farmable like the actual encounter chests, and will only give you items you've previously unlocked. Now, keep following around and then down, and the fourth collectible is right before the gravity lift up, off to this ledge on the left. After taking the gravity lift up, continue through the pipes until you reach this control room area with a rally flag drop point. The fifth collectible is on the terminal right behind it as shown. Now, get ready for the first main encounter. Loadouts don't really matter too much here, although having a sniper or a linear fusion rifle for the hydras that float out in the distance can be helpful. There is no boss, so you just need to worry about weapons and supers for clearing out ads. It's a relatively easy encounter. The goal is to complete 2 full circuits on the outside of the spire you're on. Doing so will activate a lift to make you go up to the next level. You have to complete 2 circuits on each of the 3 levels to finish. It's the same idea as the first encounter. Find the Minotaur, kill it, and pick up the Arctrician buff. Then locate the starting nodes, which have those blinking arrows. Then, from that starting node, start following the yellow cable around, shooting the nodes in order to power the cable and finish the circuit. There are some sneaky nodes down below you and up high, so you'll need to orient yourself in different vantage points to shoot them from. Take out the floating Hydra, as their void damage can be quite annoying as well. Keep making your way around and finishing the circuits. As I mentioned earlier, once you finish both circuits on each level, a lift will activate, allowing you to go up to the next one. You'll be doing the exact same thing on all 3 levels. Find the Minotaur, get the buff, find the starting node, complete the circuit. There really isn't much else to this encounter. Once you've finished all 3 floors, you will be rewarded an encounter chest and can head up to the next area. Note, the 6th and final collectible is in this 360-degree control room at this kiosk, right before you head up to the catwalk to finally reach the roof of the spire for your first boss fight. For loadouts, linear fusion rifles seem to be the best at the time this dungeon was launched, but the crit spot on the boss is a little small, so keep that in mind. Heavy ammo can sometimes be a problem too, so it's not a bad idea to also have some good DPS grenades and a DPS secondary as well. Having a way to weaken the boss will also be helpful, especially if you have a hunter with tether, or if you're doing this in Season 19 and have the weakened clear mod from the artifact. For those familiar with the Raid of Garden Salvation, the Consecrated Mind Harpy boss is back, or maybe it's long lost brother. Either way, the goal here is to kill him off. Once again, you're going to be playing Electrician with the circuits. When the fight starts, the catwalks will spawn enemies and a few Minotaurs around the outside. Take them out to get the buff from the Minotaur, and then start working on the circuits. There are 4 circuits needed to complete that travel from the middle of the spire to the outer end of each catwalk. So always go to the middle first because all 4 starting nodes are in the middle. Then, follow from the middle to the outside on each catwalk using the yellow wires, looking down and up and on the sides of the scaffoldings. And the final node on all 4 circuits is at the very end of the catwalk right on the top. Each time you complete a circuit, it will say you've readied a fuel rod. There are 4 fuel rods total before DPS. Ads and Minotaurs will keep spawning in, so keep up with them and you can refresh your buff from a new Minotaur if needed. Whichever catwalk circuit you finish last is where the DPS phase will start. So pay attention to how many fuel rods you finished, and when you're working on the last one, get your team together to get ready for DPS. The boss harpy will fly over to the final node and then open its wings and light up its 20 or so red eyes. You have a limited amount of time to shoot them all before starting the damage phase. Drop a well or a bubble for a damage buff and get ready to shoot the boss's white eye in the center. Note, as you start shooting him, he will quickly move away from you, so you'll want to follow him to an extent as you start to damage him. But be careful as you follow him because there are some openings in the floor that you can fall into. Note, the boss has a little bit of a gate or different color on the health bar. When you get half of his damage, you can keep going and extend damage phase, and he will not do his super attack at the end. If you don't do half of his health, he will do this knockback attack, so you don't want to be too close to him as the DPS phase finishes. It's a good thing to possibly drop down or just back up so you don't get launched backwards too far. Once the boss goes immune, the 4 circuits will then reset, and you'll have to repeat all 4 catwalk circuits again. You just keep repeating this process over and over until you finish the boss. Now, after the boss dies, you'll head under where the chest spawns into the spire and start heading down. You'll navigate through a series of airlocks before you get to the final boss room. In these airlocks, you're going to be introduced into a new circuit type, which is clear by the red wiring you'll see instead of the yellow wiring that you've seen thus far. The difference between the red wiring and the yellow wiring is that the red wiring, there is no start or end, essentially. You just have to activate all the nodes in the circuit within about 8 to 10 seconds of shooting the first one, whereas the yellow wire has a clear beginning and end with no time limit. So, clear out the wave of enemies and have all 3 players grab the buff from the Minotaur and look for all the red wire nodes scattered around the airlock. As you start shooting them, the wires will start to turn blue, indicating which ones you've done. You have to get them all to finish the circuit, in about 10 seconds or so, as I said. If you don't find them all and shoot them, they will then reset and you'll have to do it again. Look high and low, as there are some sneaky ones. There are about 5 or 6 total for the most part in each airlock. After completing the circuit, the big floor door will open and you will need to drop down through the fans to the next airlock. Clear the ads and complete another red wire circuit. Drop down again, and then the final room will have a Hydra in the middle and ads on the outside. Watch out for the electricity going up and down on the poles. There will be a final red wire sequence in here. Most of the nodes in this area are on the outside of the wall, with one of them in the center area where the electricity and the Hydra was. There is also the second and last hidden chest in here. There is a grate under one of the stairwells that you can shoot to drop down and find the chest. Then, you can look for one of the red corners in the newly opened area to drop down to the boss arena. To prepare for this fight, I highly recommend one Warlock with a Well of Radiance. If you don't have a Warlock, you can use cover and Titan Walls to avoid getting destroyed by the boss during the damage phase. Secondly, there are also a lot of good DPS options, but note that the boss's crit spot is very hard to hit. So likely rockets or grenade launchers and grenades like fusions and storm grenades, and damaging supers like Golden Gun, Blade Barrage, Thunder Crash, and Nova Bomb are probably best. In addition, the boss constantly shoots Void Blasters at you, so having a good Void resistance and high resilience are highly recommended. Note that this encounter combines both circuit types into one fight. Shoot the boss to start the encounter, and 2 Hydras will spawn in on the left and right with a bunch of ads and supplicants. Clear out both of the Hydras while staying away from the roaming boss, and the Minotaurs will start spawning in on the left and the right. First thing you need to do is complete the red circuit to open the big door in the middle. There are 4 red power nodes on the 4 pillars, and a 5th one above the big door. Shoot all 5, and once they are all active, the door will open and you will now need to work on the yellow circuits. The yellow circuits will start on the opposite side of the pillars you just shot for the red circuits. 2 of them will randomly open up, and you'll need to start the sequence. You need to complete 2 full yellow circuits, which end in the other far room, to start the damage phase. Here is a diagram I pulled off Reddit showing the 4 possible yellow circuits in the boss arena. I recommend having one person focus on kiting the Wyvern boss back to the far room and clearing out as many ads as possible. This will allow the other 2 players to work on the 2 circuits. Once both circuits are complete, if the boss is not in the far room, you will reset and basically have to start all over again. So make sure he has made his way to the far room where the reactor is before finishing the last circuit. Once you've found all the nodes and finished the 2 circuits and trapped the boss in the far room, you'll get an alert on screen that the reactor is going to overload. Quickly run back to the starting room, and you'll need to clear the red circuits one more time to lock the door. If you don't have a buff, a new Minotaur will spawn for you to get a new buff. You'll need to quickly shoot all 5 red circuit nodes again to close the main door. Get set up right in the middle for DPS, as the reactor will overload, stripping the boss's immune shield, and open the door. Drop a well or a bubble and start unloading everything you can at him. He will start walking towards you and unleashing the void attack, so if you don't have a well, make sure you use cover to stay alive. Spam heavy grenades and supers until the boss goes immune. The door will close, and you'll then reset everything all over again. Keep repeating this process each damage phase to kill the boss and collect your loot. Some final tips on this boss fight. The yellow circuits always start and end in the same sequence, so once you've done this a few times, you should have a good idea of where all the nodes are. Remember, you'll only have to do 2 of the 4 possible circuits before each round of damage. And a final tip is, once the DPS phase is over and the door closes, you can actually kill the Hydras from the far room and the boss can't follow you in there. So if you need a second to collect your bearings and get some health back, run through the smaller tunnels and shoot the Hydras from across the tunnels. That way, the big boss can't bother you. Anyway, this is a pretty fun, quick, and relatively bug-free dungeon. Best of luck in getting this done, Guardians, and until next time, thanks for watching.